if we give them what they want, this high price, then we need to have the terms that are favorable for it to make sense for the investment. So that's where the beauty is. It's kind of like a lever system, right? If you pay them in cash, well, now you got to pay them a lot less because it has to make more sense for me, because cash is usually not cash. They're still getting the money from somewhere. So there's some debt on that money where they got to pay. So if they want what they want for the home or for the multifamily, we'll give them that, but they need to give us our terms. And sometimes we extend those terms out, 30, 35, 40, 50 years. It just depends on what that deal looks like. And sometimes we'll have balloons in there, 5, 10, 15, or sometimes there won't be a balloon. It all depends on that seller and that deal and how they feel.
Welcome to the Uncensored Real Estate Podcast, where nothing is off limits. If you're interested in buying, selling, or investing in real estate, and you want to learn some of the insider secrets and uncensored truths from the true professionals in and around real estate, you've come to the right place. Now, let's buckle up for the uncensored truth about real estate and join your host, Brian Cardenas.
All right, everybody, welcome to the next episode of the Uncensored Real Estate Podcast. Thanks for joining us today. Remember, if you're watching us on YouTube, make sure you hit that subscribe button and hit the little bell for getting notifications of our new episodes. And if you're catching us on one of your podcast platforms, please subscribe and share it. Give us a 5-star rating if you can, because we'd like to keep bringing people who are very knowledgeable in the real estate space on here. And the more we get the word out to the public that we can educate and get more people on here, the better. And so today I wanted to bring on a friend of mine. His name is Dominic Milinazzo, a good Italian boy. He's coming to us from Colorado, despite the fact, if you're watching on YouTube, it does not look like in his background. He's in Colorado. He's with What's Next Realty. Dominic, thank you for joining us.
Hey, thanks for having me. Hey, you said my last name right.
I'm married to an Italian wife. If I said it wrong, I'd be crucified.
I even say it wrong. I say Milinazzo because when you tell people Milinazzo, they, it takes them a little bit of a while. So yeah, Milinazzo is like pizza. You don't say pizza, you say pizza. Yeah, same way.
Exactly. Well, the crazy thing about understanding the pronunciation is I grew up my whole childhood. Our last name is Cardenas. We say Cardenas, but it's Cardenas, Hispanic. Yep. Came up with Mexican culture and everything like that, even though I'm a white boy. And I finally did one of those DNA tests, and it turns out I'm like 0.9% Mexican, and I'm like 9% Italian. So I'm actually more Italian than I am Mexican.
Right on. Yeah, I did one of those. I came up 47% Italian, and then some Spaniard, and I have Native American in me. I have like 19% Native American. So I didn't know that. Those
things are pretty cool. They're interesting to see kind of where the heritage is, especially when it's different than what you expect. I was a little surprised.
Right. It's kind of crazy what you come up with. It's fun though. I like to. They say you get smarter when you like research your ancestors, look at their pictures, think about them, read about them. They say you get smarter. Like it does something to you, especially for entrepreneurs. So I try to do that often. I actually can't see it, but I have a write up. You can't see it, but. I have a write-up of my grandfather who came over from Italy when he was like 10 and started a goods, like a general store and a merchandise and all that kind of stuff in Ludlow, Colorado, to feed and service the miners that were working up there. So I look at his stuff and I look at him often to give me inspiration and hope, because the struggles they went through, man, to do those things are nothing for what I have. So when I start to feel sorry for myself and I have it so bad, I go and I read the stories and read the hardships and see who died, when they died, how they died, and the hardships that they had. So if they can go through that, I shouldn't complain about any of the stuff I have going on.
Yeah, it gives you a lot of perspective. I think that's cool. That's one thing I didn't do is I didn't get the actual like ancestral history. I got like the genetic history, but I definitely want to go and do that part of it too, because you're right. People that came over here, either, from Europe or South America or wherever that they immigrated from, man, times were tough. Like we have to have a little bit of perspective here in our life, and complaining about, I got too many telemarketer calls or whatever. It's like, get over it,
Try not having electricity. Try not having food. Try having pneumonia or some things that they all got back then. So we don't have it bad, man. We got it easy.
No, We definitely don't. So one of the things I wanted to kind of touch on with you is, we like to talk about just things related to real estate. And I find that so many people in the general public either have misconceptions about things or just don't understand what we do. If you had to kind of boil it down to like one big thing that you see that the average consumer doesn't get about real estate, whether it's just like current market or just the process, like what would you say is a big thing that you would like to have people be better informed about?
So everybody overlooks, I guess, the negotiation piece and how people interact with one another. It's very important for the agents to be able to communicate effectively to other agents, other people. A lot of times you have agents that are super smart. They know what they're doing, but their communication is weak. Not that they don't, call you or text you, but how they do it. So we're basically the conductor, man. I'm the tour guide, and we're trying to get you where you want to go. So the last thing we want to do is cause roadblocks because of egos or because of lack of communication skills. We don't want to cause roadblocks. So that's the most important thing. So a lot of people look for in real estate agents, people they deal with, the flashy, this is the best guy because it's the best cheerleader out there. They have the best forms, but are they the best communicator? Are they gonna hinder that sale and cause problems because of their shortcomings, which it happens so often. I have to talk to agents and ask them, do you want to get this done? Why are you putting roadblocks? You and I need to work together and make this pleasurable for everybody. We need to take the heavy weightlifting off of the client, put it on our backs, right? On our backs, use our skills and make sure that everybody gets one. So it's that communication piece is a huge factor. And that comes down to being able to get along with other people. You have to be able to get along. You have to be able to get along with all sorts of different people that are involved in this transaction. So I would say it would be, don't look for somebody that's just flashy. Look for somebody that you like and that that can communicate effectively for you and not throw you on us.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point because I think, especially over the last couple of years, it was so one-sided in the transaction that, you had people on the listing side of it, not everybody, of course, but there's some people on the listing side of it. They just got so overwhelmed that they wouldn't communicate at all, Right. And then you have other ones who almost treat it as an adversarial relationship, and it's like, I'm representing the seller or I'm representing the buyer and I'm going to get over on you. And it doesn't have to be that way, does it?
No, not. In fact, that's a sure way to screw the deal up. I mean, I had one that a large multifamily and the agent didn't know what he was doing. He was new. I could tell, which is okay. I'm all right. I'll help you. I'll walk you through it. But he was causing problems that didn't exist. And he almost lost a $4 million deal for his client. That's a pretty big deal to be losing for himself and his client. He almost lost it because he just wouldn't play nice. He wasn't giving us the, that honest and fair dealing. He was just putting up roadblocks, and it almost caused the whole deal to go south. So, and a lot of people don't know that when they're, their agents out there talking for them, they don't know that that's what the agent is doing. Is terrifying. If I was that consumer, if I knew my agent was talking that way, I would be scared. Definitely.
Yeah, because I mean, in a good deal, everybody should walk away from it getting what they want. Like, you're not going to get 100% of what you want, but if everybody can walk away feeling like, I got most of what I was looking for in this transaction, that's a good deal, is where everybody's, walking away happy, not where one side's pissed off and the other one's, just thinking that they got over on them. But for the consumer, how do they figure that out? Like, how do they figure out if that agent has that skill set?
That is a great question, because everybody's brochure says they're dynamite and they're, and all their reviews. So really what, our 30-day live challenge that we just did, that, because I couldn't find a way to do it. Like, how do I let people know who I am, right? Not just from paper and just, the brief introduction. The live videos really, really showcased who I was and allowed people to really see, like, okay, I understand who Dominic is. I understand how he communicates. I understand what makes his heart work. I understand what makes his brain work. I understand how he thinks. I understand how he helps people. So doing those live videos was really helpful for me to get out there. So I would say for a consumer, find people who are doing those videos or types of videos, right? Then you really get to see the raw person, not always the videos that are saying, here's my deal with real estate and this is what we do and here's what we have going on. not anything to do with real estate sometimes, just to see who they actually are. So I would say, hop on social media, find people that have videos out there and go interact with them. Find out who they are, and you'll know if that's the type of person that you want representing you. It's not that, we have attorneys out here, strong arm and all this. No. That's not how you get things done. That's the old ancient ways to get things done. It's all with finesse and communication. So I would say look for those videos that people are in.
Yeah, that's a good tip. I think, a lot of agents, especially ones that are doing more business, have a lot of high production value videos, that they've got a director, they've got a makeup artist, they've got all this stuff. And those are nice and cool and everything, but you don't always see who that person is, that real person is. And I think that's a great point about the lives. Like, I didn't even think about that aspect of it in what we were doing is, people just get to see who you are, like just see behind
all
the
our
scenes.
flaws, our mess ups, our when we're sad, when we're happy, some of the things that we've went through in our life, because all those things, they really matter. A lot of people are smart and they understand their real estate, but unless you've been through things and you know how to handle that person just had a death, a divorce, whatever's going on in their life, special needs children, like you need to know these things for people. You need to have went through some of these things to help them, to really empathize with them and know how to solve their problems. So yeah, I love the videos, man. It's a great thing. I call those agents that everything's perfect cheerleader agents. They're good. Like I don't like to bad about them. They probably know exactly what they're doing, but everything's so perfect. They're just that cheerleader that everything's perfect. And my house is perfectly staged. Well, in the real world, my clients, I'll take on any client. I like the smaller guys. I like the guys that need help with the staging and all that stuff, and their house isn't perfect. It might show a little flaw here and there, but that's human. That's who we are. So that's really how I've got my point across. Those videos are awesome. That's all.
So it's a fine balance though, because like people can go on social and see somebody that does real estate, and maybe they're doing some live videos and they're being real and they don't have the high production value. They don't have all the polished stuff. Everything doesn't look perfect. So on one side of you thinking, okay, this sounds like the right kind of person, but then that person may also not have a lot of experience, right, and have developed the skill set. So like if someone's trying to, let's say they see somebody on live video, they kind of feel like a good connection to them on social. How do they go investigate the other part of the professional side of it to know if they are a skilled negotiator, if they have enough history? Because there's a lot of people that got in this business, in the last 2-3 years. They don't know what this market is like. Like this is a market, if you've been doing it for a while, okay, we've gone through it. We know what to expect. But people that got in the business 2 years ago, like they don't know what a seller concession is. Like they've never heard of that mysterious thing.
They don't know how to get creative.
Yeah.
Right. They don't know how to get creative. Okay. So how do you find that? I would say ask to speak to some of their past clients, not just what they wrote down for their 5 stars and all that kind of stuff for their review, but say, hey man, can I call a couple of the people that you've worked with and see how that went, and have a few of those in your pocket, right? So you can say, call, these 5 people, my last 5 people, because that's all you can judge me on, right? Because I could pull somebody from 4 years ago and cherry pick them and ask them how it goes. That would be the best way to that. And look at their social media. If their social media is goodness and giving back to the world and about real estate and all that kind of stuff, that's who they are. That's who they are all the time, not just what their brochure. Sorry about that. What their brochure says, on a when they're doing the deal and trying to get the client to like them. So I would say investigate them through social media, and then ask to speak to a couple of their last deals that they've done, even if they're bad deals. I've had bad deals, that went bad and lots of problems. But it's how you work through it. Every deal has a problem. It's how you work through it. So even if they've had some bad ones, it's good to go and talk to those people, because you're going to get a good idea of how they react to, not only when they know the answer. Like I know, if I know the answer, I can react really well and I know how to handle this. It's when I don't know the answer is really when I show my value. Like I don't know this. I got to go figure this out. Let me put this stuff together to help you and solve your problems.
Yeah, and being a good problem solver is really, really important in this business. Sometimes consumers may think that it's, simple, straightforward. You come take pictures, put a house on the market, you put it in the MLS, and just start fielding calls. And it really comes down to a lot of creativity sometimes. And I think that's a piece of the puzzle that a lot of people don't really understand. Like in this market right now, some of that creativity is coming back into the mix. Can you talk about maybe some things that you're doing if you're representing a buyer right now, where you're trying to get creative to get the right property, negotiate the right deal? Because right now you can typically find a property in most markets. The supply is up somewhat. It's not where houses are selling in 6 hours. So it's not the finding the property, but maybe just getting yourself a really good deal. What are some of the things you guys are seeing in the market right now?
So there's lots of deals happening. It's the way you present that offer. It's how I come across in the beginning. If I come across that I'm positive and that I know what I'm doing and that my buyers are ready, they're all ready to go to purchase this home, meaning we're going to close. I don't know about the other people, but we're going to close. So if I instill that confidence in the other agent, they're more likely to go with our deal, even if it's less money than somebody else who just kind of submitted an offer blindly, didn't call them first, I call them 4 or 5 times. Like, I get to know this agent. We're going to be working together. I want to know who you are, and let them know who my buyers are and how effective they are, how they can close, that I've closed X amount of deals. These amount of my deals close, 95% of my deals close, whatever it is that I have to tell them to let them know that we're a true player and we mean business. And we're going to go through this transaction as professionals and we know what we're doing. So right now it's really not hard to submit offers. And really the hardest part is the confidence level in the consumer that's buying, the client that's buying the home. Do they want to be serious and buy this? Because they get cold feet because they hear stuff on the news, the radio, whatever. And then they have these questions. So it's really educating the buyer a little bit more than that seller right now.
So with the buyers,
go ahead.
With the buyers maybe having a little bit of trepidation about the market, if somebody's worried about home prices dropping either after they buy or maybe just let me put it off until home prices drop because they believe that's what's going to happen. What does that conversation sound like for you? I mean, what's your opinion on where things are going?
Well, I'm not the agent that says it's always a good time to buy. It is, if it's a good time for you to buy. If your life says, hey, this is what I need in my life. I need another room. Here's my stable income. I need whatever it happens to be that you need. If it's right for you, now's a great time to buy. There's lots of deals out there. There's people that are, I know me, I have homes that I've slashed prices. There's lots of deals to be had. So if they can afford the payment right now, qualify for right now, I say, go buy that house. But if you can't, and there's no life event that's happening for you, you don't need it, why would you buy a house? And I would say that in any market, even if it's killing it, like, why would you buy a house if you don't need these rooms? You don't need a house. Maybe you travel so much that you're like, why would I have a house? I don't want to maintain it. So if it's right for you, so what we do is we dig deep. Okay, how many kids do you have and do you want to have? We go through the whole process of what are you going to need in the future? What do you need right now? And if it makes sense for them, then I say do it. And that's how I get around that, because you'll never time the market. You're either an investor or you're a homesteader. It's hard to be both. An investor, the numbers say, this doesn't make sense for me. But when you're a homestead, a person that's going to live there, it's not always the numbers as long as you can afford it. So we sell deals to, we have a deal that an investor would say, no way, man, I'm going to wait for this market. But somebody who wants to live in it says, that's perfect. I can afford that payment. I don't have to make money off this house. I need to live here and I need to enjoy I need to have the value and enjoy having the home, not so much as an investment. So that's the hardest thing, because a lot of people think, when I buy a home, it's my investment. Well, it may turn out to be your investment. It may turn out to be lucrative for you. But right now you're just solving a problem of, I need a place to live. These are the things I need. And this is the area I need it to be in. And this is how much I can spend.
Yeah, everybody has those life events and things that change, circumstances change. And those are probably the primary motivators most of the time for people to go out and purchase a home. And you're right. I think the biggest question that we always, ask and find out, in addition to what you're talking about, is, how long do you anticipate being there? Like if they're telling you things about their life or their job or whatever that may cause them to have to move in a year or 2 years, then it might not be an ideal time to do it. There's
right,
there's costs involved.
Right.
So
different story.
Yeah, that's a big key for a lot of people is, for those of you listening out there, they're thinking, well, should I wait? Should I, do it now? If you have a short time horizon, I would probably say, sitting on the sidelines is a good idea, because we don't anticipate the market dropping significantly. Everybody's got their own opinion, but it could see some drop. I mean, we're seeing prices come down on listings for sure. And if you're going to have the price go down even 5% and then sell it in a year, and you've got, 6% in sales costs, 7%, whatever that number happens to be, yeah, don't do it. Like, you're going to lose money if you do that. But if you plan on being there for 2, 3, 4 years, whatever dip we see in this next year, more than likely by that time, market's going to be back up. You can make enough money to cover your expenses and things like that. So I think that's really an important piece for people to remember.
Right. I've talked people out of buying homes, believe it or not. If it wasn't right for them, or I'll tell them, I wouldn't suggest doing this, but it's up to you. But here's why I wouldn't do it. For consumers, if an agent is pushing you to sell a home, to buy a home, and it's not right for you, that's the big indicator that that's not the right agent.
Got a little bit of commission breath going on there, huh?
Commission breath. I've had it. In other, I really don't. I mean, I get it, when you need the commission, right? But I would never put anybody in a home that they couldn't afford or that wasn't right for them. I look at everybody that could be my brother, my cousin, my nephew, my niece, my mom, my dad, and I wouldn't want somebody to do that to them. So I look at all my clients as they're a relative in that manner, and I care so much. I just care a ton. So you got to find the agent that really cares, even to the point that he makes bad business decisions for himself just to get the client in the home, which I've done it many times. I mean, I've given clients, closing fee money. I've given washers and dryers that I get from another listing that I had that they didn't want anymore, and I give that to them. So there's lots of little things that you look for in your agent to see if they have that giving heart too. That's another pro tip. If they have a giving heart, if they're giving to you, that they're gonna fight for you. But if they're fighting for themselves all the time, it's kind of hard to represent yourself and the client at the same time.
Yeah, and the good ones, like you're talking about, the good ones put the clients first all the time, even if it's detrimental in their wallet. Today, it's going to end up being good for you in the long term, and you have to have that mentality when you're doing business, in my opinion. Otherwise, it comes through to people. So
it sure does.
For those agents that are out there listening, don't ever put yourself ahead of your clients, because it's not going to pay in the long term anyway.
It is right. It's no way to live. I like to go home and go to sleep, and I feel good about what I'm doing for my community, what I'm doing for my people. I would hate to go home and say, think about, did I shortchange this guy? I even feel that way sometimes when I didn't, but I'm like, could I have negotiated that better? Could I have got this better for me? I second guess that sometimes. So we just try hard is all. Just try hard. Mean what you say and say what you mean.
Now, you mentioned before, that the perspective is different for an investor versus a homesteader. Switch gears a little bit to the investor perspective. What are some of the opportunities that you see out there for investors right now?
Oh my gosh. So the investors are from single family all the way up to huge multifamily, right? And everywhere in between. So right now and this is for consumers too. It's hard for some consumers to understand what it is, but there's a ton of cheap mortgages, 2%, 3% on. I'll give you an example. We have a multifamily in Texas, 2 of them. It's like 1,000 units. They're willing to own or carry all of them. So they're going to sell or finance millions of dollars to our investor. So why is that good for our investor? Well, his interest rate would be sky high right now, and the numbers probably wouldn't make sense to purchase it for that amount of money. But since they're carrying him, they're still making the amount of money they want, the sellers, and the investor's still going to make the returns that they want to make. They're just not having to go get that expensive money. So there's a lot of cheap interest rate loans out there that you could be carried on with the owner. Subject to is what we call it, or a hybrid where they still have a loan and then there's some equity. So you pay on the loan and then you pay them on their equity. So I would say that for investors, creative finance is huge right now. That's what's going on. Pace Morby, I don't know if you know who that is.
Yeah.
That's actually the buyer for these.
Me.
That's actually the buyers for these units, and it's all seller finance. He wouldn't be buying that on cash, and they wouldn't be selling it. So there's a ton of opportunities right now because those interest rates are going to come back down. They're not going to stay, up there forever. So right now for investors, there's a ton of opportunity to look at the creative finance piece of it.
You want to buy a house, but high interest rates have got you down? Take the rate challenge and send us a verifiable loan estimate from another lender, and we'll beat it and pay for your appraisal up to $600. Here at Give Mortgage, being powered by U Mortgage allows us to provide you with unmatched speed and efficiency and the best rates and fees in the market, all while delivering you the concierge level service you deserve. We want you to have an experience getting a mortgage that you'll never forget, and not because you got put through a meat grinder to get it. At Give Mortgage, we give great advice, we give the best rates, and we give back to charity. Visit us at www.give-mortgage.com or call us at 480-331-4684 to schedule a free consultation to see how we can help.
How does somebody who maybe just has their primary residence right now, how do they break into becoming an investor? I mean, that might not be somebody that's going to go buy a 1,000-unit apartment complex. What's the fastest way or easiest way for somebody to break into beginning to become a real estate investor?
So there's like that house hack that everybody I'm sure knows about, go buy a fourplex, you stay in one of the units and you rent out the others because you can get, an FHA on it. So you don't have to have the 20% down and all that kind of stuff. So that's one way to go traditionally. The other way is to go and partner with somebody that can find you a creative finance that where the entry is, maybe $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 to get going in this rental home, right? And no banks need to come in. So you put down your $30,000. A lot of people who want to get into investing could probably come up with $20,000 or $30,000 and buy it on a creative finance type of opportunity. That way you're not having to come up with 20% and the big interest rate and all of the things that go along with that second property as a rental, what the bank looks at. So I would say find a creative finance deal to get your first one under your belt. And that would be partnering up with somebody who knows what that is, who's hunting for those deals constantly. We do that all day long. I got a whole team in there that they hunt from East Coast to West Coast, and they're looking for nothing but creative finance deals. And you would be surprised how many people are actually selling on that. Now, it doesn't work for everybody. I have homes right now that I'm selling that I can't do creative finance. They need that money to go to the next place. But a lot of people don't need that. So there's tired landlords, for example. A guy in his 70s, 60s, whatever. He's tired of fixing toilets and he's tired of dealing with rent and he's tired of dealing with that. But he wants this amount of money. So we come in and say, here's $30,000 down. Let's take over your loan or your equity. And now we own the property and you keep getting paid for, however many years that we set that up for. So that's the easiest way to get into is creative finance, because then you don't have to have all of the big stuff behind you that the banks want to see to give you that money.
So just to kind of boil it down to the most simple terms for the novice person, you number one have to find an agent who knows how to go find those deals, because they're probably more plentiful than we think, but you're not going to see them all the time on the MLS, right?
Right. People don't see those deals. Like before I was into this, you don't even know how many deals get sold. If real estate agents knew how many deals got sold that didn't hit the market, that they didn't know about, that were good deals for their homestead buyers, let alone their investors, they'd flip out. There's a lot of stuff that happens. That people don't know about. So yes, finding that agent or that person that can hunt for you and knows how to find those deals is the key. We have large groups that we have this thing called an elephant challenge where anybody can join in and try to find their first investment deal. They don't know anything about it, but they know how to call. They know how to talk to people. We put all the things together for them to allow them to be able to get into that investing piece. So that's one way to do it. The other way is just hook up with an agent that knows what he's doing or she's doing and ask them about, creative finance and how could I get into this? And that's the way I would go to find that investment piece.
So once you do that, really, for when the agent goes and finds a potential property for somebody, what they're kind of looking for is a seller that's not needing to take away a bunch of cash from the sale. Because when you have to take a bunch of cash from the sale, then doing a subject to or anything like that is probably not going to work for them.
Correct.
So what that seller typically is looking for is they're looking for an income stream. They're not looking for a lump sum of cash. They're looking for an income stream.
Right.
And to your point, a lot of those people probably have interest rates that are pretty darn good
Right.
because of all the opportunities for refinancing in the last couple of years. So what you're really doing is you're structuring a payment plan, kind of like a mortgage payment, to that seller. So instead of the bank being the one you pay the seller. They're receiving that income. They still got to pay that mortgage that they had if they had a mortgage on it. But they're typically making a little bit of a spread on what they've got to pay out and what they're receiving in. And then you're having to come up with significantly less money up front. What's a typical percentage that you got to put down on something like that?
Well, it doesn't make sense anything over 20%. So typically it's between 5 and 10% is what a good deal looks like. If they got to come up with 20, well, then you get to they just go get a loan and, pay you a little bit less for your house, and the whole negotiation piece starts. So typically between like 5 and 10%. The seller becomes the bank, basically. So
Right.
Instead of taking their money out and going in, okay, I got paid cash, I have to go find another investment piece that I'm going to make money on. They just leave their money in that investment piece, but they shed the burden of being responsible for, toilets, hot water heaters, roofs, leaks, all that kind of stuff.
And so what would be the advantage for somebody? Let's say somebody has an investment property, and let's say they have a 3.5% interest rate on that investment property. They're contemplating maybe selling the property and rolling it over in a 1031 exchange. So they have the opportunity to tax deferred exchange into the next investment property. What would be the advantage that they might find in selling their house the way that you're talking about?
So one is they're going to avoid all those fees. So I think Zillow, somebody had it, or one of them had Realtor.com. It's between like 10 and 11% right now, total, all the fees when you count in, some of the discounts they got to give, real estate fees, closing fees. So they avoid all those fees for one. The other is if the asset's already performing, they avoid having to go find another asset, God knows where, and perform the same way. They already have one performing. So why would they want to do that? Some things too as well. They don't get rid of the taxing, but it just slows it down because they're only getting little payments instead of, that lump sum where they got to throw that tax out and pay that capital gain. So they don't save on the taxings. They delay the tax burden. So a lot of people want to do that. Some people have, I know this is crazy, but some people have rotten children, or I don't know how you would say it. How they have it. And they don't want, maybe they're older in their age and they don't want to die and leave millions or whatever to these children. But if they knew that, hey man, I'm going to sell it on a seller carry, and that my heirs are going to get this amount of money each month guaranteed, and they can't spend it all at once, they'll feel better about going to their grave knowing that they didn't hand over their problem children, this lump sum of money that they're going to, waste it.
Yeah.
And that's more prevalent than you think. I mean, I have a lot of them that say that. I can't leave all this money, Dom. Okay, we'll leave it in here and we'll continue to pay you for it.
Yeah, talk to any estate planning attorney. They'll vouch for you. It brings out the worst in people sometimes.
Sometimes or the best.
Yeah. So another thing too, from the seller standpoint, that's an advantage. Correct me if I'm wrong. Is that you're typically going to be able to negotiate a better price on the house from the seller side than you would for somebody that's going to come in and buy it and get bank financing, because you're going to probably be able to offer them, I would say, slightly better terms than they get from the bank these days. Is that right?
Right. So,
and because they're not coming up with as much money, you can negotiate a better price on the sale too.
Right. So if we give them what they want, this high price, then we need to have the terms that are favorable for it to make sense for the investment. So that's where the beauty is. It's kind of like a lever system, right? If you pay them in cash, well, now you got to pay them a lot less because it has to make more sense for me, because cash is usually not cash. They're still getting the money from somewhere. So there's some debt on that money where they got to pay. So if they want what they want for the home or for the multifamily, we'll give them that, but they need to give us our terms. And sometimes we extend those terms out, 30, 35, 40, 50 years. It just depends on what that deal looks like. And sometimes we'll have balloons in there, 5, 10, 15, or sometimes there won't be a balloon. It all depends on that seller and that deal and how they feel. And a balloon is just paying off whatever you bought it for. If you bought it for $1 million and there's a balloon in 10 years, then you need to pay off whatever's owed on that property in 10 years.
So for a buyer that's thinking that this sounds like it might be something that would work, is there credit requirements that sellers are looking for to be able to accept an offer from a buyer like this?
So we would go to someone like yourself, somebody that takes in all the information and says, okay, here's your tax returns, here's your monthly income, here's your expenses. This person could afford this deal from what we see. So get them qualified in that basic level. It's just, they don't have to go through the whole bank side of the underwriting and how they do business. So yeah, there is a general qualification. Definitely don't want people who, don't have a job or, don't make enough money to even make the payment to be buying these. So yeah, we vet them going through someone like yourself.
So both on the seller's side and the buyer's side, there's definitely flexibilities that come in structuring deals this way, as opposed to trying to go through bank for traditional financing. It sounds like can put together a win-win, hopefully.
Right. And we give them like a due on sale clause. So we say, okay, seller, if this buyer doesn't make the payments, if they miss a payment and then they're late 30 days, you get the property back. There's no foreclosure process, none of that. So that's all up front. So the seller's like, okay, so I have some sense of comfort to know that they can't just come in here, buy this in this manner, and then string me out for, how long sometimes those can go. Sometimes those foreclosures and, back and forth with the tenant, I could stretch out years sometimes. We give them a performance deed, a deed in lieu of, and it helps them feel better and sleep at night to know that, hey, if I got this down payment and this guy's paying and then he flakes, I know I have some recourse to get my property back in a quick manner without having attorneys and going through the foreclosure process.
So that's kind of a different thing that most people don't know about, because I think most agents really don't know too much about it. And it's a good thing to have a good understanding of and have an agent that's proficient at it to see if it's a good viable option for you. But for those people that are selling a home right now, and let's say they do need to cash out, let's say this just isn't going to be an option that works for them, what are some of the things that you're seeing as strategies or ways to get a house sold in this market that's a little bit more balanced, obviously a lot more challenging than it was in the last 2 years to get a house sold?
That's a good one. Right now, I have a few that are on the market like that right now. I'm marketing the hell out of them. Open houses, people say, but that usually is good for me. It usually doesn't sell the home. Marketing, doing reverse prospects to people, calling all the agents that's seen it, right? And letting them know exactly what you have to offer. Like, go back to the buyer's agent and educate them on the deal. Even if you got to do it 4 or 5 times, I'll call them. I'll make excuses up to call them. And by you talking to them and letting them know, they hear things that they didn't see or read before, and it sparks their interest to say, well, maybe we got to bring my client back to see this. I didn't realize, Dom, that they wouldn't have any of these expenses in an older home that they're looking at, because this one's already been done. So it's that communication with those agents. When I get a showing, so we have a showing service, and it alerts us. I call that agent right away, and I ask them, I introduce myself, find out what their client's like, find out what they want to see, and then I tell them about my property again. And then I just keep that communication going even after they've seen the house. And I've got a few sold that way, where that agent might have went somewhere else, but I stuck to him or her. I stuck to their hip, so I was the squeaky wheel. And when, all things are the same and that house is kind of like that house, they're going to go buy my house over the house that nobody called them on. Of course, if the house doesn't fit they don't like the area, the price is wrong, you're not going to sell it. But all things being equal, when you're battling it out, you just need to be in front of those buyer's agents as much as possible. And that's through texting, calling, and reverse prospecting, like through an email, a blast email to a whole bunch of agents that we have on our list.
So one thing I'm hearing kind of as a consistent theme is the communication. One of the things that you do that I love, and not all agents do, so that those of you who are listening or watching realize this, is you mentioned before you present an offer, when you're representing the buyer, you're going to call the listing agent 4 or 5 times. Yep. That, so you know, is gold, because there are agents out there that if they make one call, they're doing good. Some of them don't make any calls and they just throw in an offer. And on the listing side, agents hate to see that happen, because their job on the listing side is to figure out, is this a real buyer? Is this going to close? Because we don't want to tie our client's house up for a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and then have the deal fall apart, especially in a market like this where things are trending downward. That can cost a lot of money. And so the fact that you're calling 4 and 5 times, what that's doing is it's helping your client as the buyer have a better rapport, a tighter connection to that listing agent. They're going to feel better about the offer. And then on the flip side, when you're representing the seller, you making 4 to 5 calls, like you said, to go reach back out to the agents who've come by and visited. People think that real estate's a commodity, and it is to an extent, but it's also still largely a people business. Like if you don't dig deep enough to find out what the motivations are on the buyer side and the seller side, you're not going to know, what are those hot buttons? What are those pain points? Like, how do you get creative and solve for those things and find a happy medium? And not everybody does that, right?
Right. I may uncover something calling that buyer's agent that, they don't need to move in for 60 days or whatever they may need. Like they may need 60 days before they move in. And I could say, hey, my guys are good, closing down, waiting 60, whatever that looks like. I'm going to find out what they actually need. Maybe it's leaving the furniture. Maybe a big thing for them is they don't want to bring all their furniture over, whatever that looks like. We say, hey, we're throwing the furniture in for you. Little things like that sell the property. So it's just finding out what everybody's likes and wants and pain points are, solving problems, talking to people. That's it. Real estate not involved. Like we better know what we're doing in real estate. We better know our contracts. We better know our dates and deadlines. But more importantly, we better know people and know how they tick and what they want, because that's really why they're buying the home. Unless they're an investor. Investors are totally different. It's all numbers. But when you're buying that home for yourself, it's all emotional. It's all, some people like certain houses because they grew up in that style of a home as a child. They're like, I want that house. I want that style. So you just have to talk to people. That's the biggest thing. Answer your phone, pick up your phone and call people. Don't be afraid. Just call them.
Yeah, no, it's a good message that you're delivering there, because that is the biggest key, in my opinion, is you got to be able to help people. Number one, that's got to be in your heart. That's got to be your priority. And in order to help people, you got to talk to people. Like you got to talk to people. You got to ask questions. You got to get to know what they need. What are they looking for? And then it's like you started out in the beginning of the conversation, like building a connection and finding a way to, build a bridge so that everybody can get out of it what they want. And that's what I find in talking to really good agents like you, is that those ones are the ones that do those things, that take that extra step, that understand it's a people business and you got to serve people first. Right. One thing I would like to ask you is, if somebody's been listening to this and they think, hey man, I think Dominic might be the guy for me. How do we get in touch with you? How do they get in touch with you?
So I'm all over on my Facebook. It's just Dominic Milinazzo on Facebook. My cell phone, I answer it. If I don't, I'll send you a text and say, hey, I'll get right back to you. My cell phone is 303-507-0692. Now, as far as being an agent, I'm only an agent in Colorado. Me and my wife, we have a small brokerage and my boys work with me. But we're able to find properties across the country using that creative finance, as well as here. Just we don't represent them as agents across the country, only in Colorado. So I would say reach out to me on Facebook or my cell, 303-507-0692. And I'd love to help you out, take care of you, and get you to the next place.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you taking some time out of your schedule today. I'm glad you could jump out of the pool and take a break from swimming and
it's
join us today.
It's 26 degrees right now here. So, yeah.
Oh, you're going to go ice skating in that pool in a little while, right?
Frozen. Yeah, I haven't frozen. That's just lighting right there. Yeah. So I wish I was out in Arizona, a little bit of warmth, but for another day. I'll be back out there probably in a month.
Well, hit me up when you get out here.
I will hit you up. Hey, thanks for having me. I appreciate you. You are the best loan guy out there. Is that what they call you guys, loan guys now? What do you guys like to be called?
I don't know. They change it all the time. Loan rangers, mortgage loan originators, mortgage brokers. Like, you can call us whatever, as long as you call us.
As long as you call us. Yeah, you definitely need a good one. So I appreciate what you're doing, getting this stuff out to the consumer. And I'll be on anytime you want. I'll come back on. Love to do it.
Sounds good. Appreciate you guys. Have a great rest of your day. Thanks for joining us, and tune in again next week for the next episode of the Uncensored Real Estate Podcast. Take care.
Thanks for joining us, and please remember to go and subscribe, like, share, all that cool stuff to help us grow, and come back to listen to our next episode. Until then, go out and live life uncensored.
Thanks for listening to the Uncensored Real Estate Podcast. Don't forget to help us out and subscribe. Follow and give us a 5-star rating on your favorite podcast platform. And check us out on YouTube for the full video podcast. If you want more information on any of the topics discussed on today's episode, email us at uncensoredrealestatepodcast@gmail.com or give the Cardenas Mortgage Team a call at 480-331-4684.